Okay, so hopefully you have a pretty clear idea of what the identity specification is now. So we can move on to one more thing. First of all, our employee number is a primary key. Okay, and if we didn't have the identity specification on it and we had to enter it manually, the primary key is a required field. We can't leave it blank. We have to put something in there. And we don't say specifically that that's the case, but if we look at the design view for employee and we have a look here under our employee number field I have selected, you can see some properties here. I have an allow nulls and it says no. If I look at any of my other fields right now, my allow nulls says yes. Yes, 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 okay? You'll also notice there's an allow nulls column over here, and next to each field it tells you whether or not it's allowed null by using a checkbox. For the moment, we haven't made any of these fields required. The primary key is required by default, but the rest of them we've left not required. And that's kind of like one of those, they call it code smells, excuse the terminology, that's just the way we describe it. But the idea is that we want to avoid as much human error as possible. Somebody accidentally hitting the enter key when they didn't mean to before they're finished typing in a record on some form somewhere. We can prevent human error by saying that we always require certain fields to be entered before we can insert a record. So what kind of fields might those include? Well, when we're adding a new employee to our database, when we're adding a new employee to our company, we definitely know their first and last name. We did interviews with them, and that's all there. So we can guarantee that that will not be null. Okay. Now, not null is the database's way of saying required. Okay. It's not case sensitive. You will usually see me type it all in uppercase, but I'm trying to mix it up a little bit so you know that you're not limited to that only. Now the last name would be not null. The title, well, you might not know the title right away. Maybe it's like, okay, he's hired, but we haven't quite figured out what his job description involves. So you might allow that to be null. Now, if you do not say not null, then it's null by default. So it's null. So you can say it explicitly, but it's implied that it's nullable if you did not say that it's a required field by stating that it cannot be null. Another salary, again, that's something we could probably leave null. And the start date, well, let's make that a not null. Just, maybe these business rules are that when we add somebody to the database, we already know what day they're starting. I don't know. It depends on your business rules, though. Some things it makes no sense to do, and some things it does make sense to do within the context of the business that you're writing a database for. So, actually, I don't want to save that, but I do want to rerun my insert here. And so keeping in mind that now our primary key is a required field, but it's being filled in for us automatically by this identity field. Our first and last name are required fields because we said that they're not null. Okay? And our employee start date is not allowed to be null, so it's a required field. But these other two we're allowed to leave blank. All right. So I am going to close that up for a minute. I'm going to go back to employee. Oh, I should run this script first, shouldn't I? So I'm going to hit execute. Right click on employee, edit top 200 rows, and we have a blank database again because we didn't run any inserts along with that. And I'm going to insert James Marks in my first and last name field. I can leave title and salary empty. I'm not allowed to leave employee start empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try. All right, I'm going to hit enter, or I'm going to hit tab, or somehow get off of this row, or try to, and then I'm going to get an error. And that error says no row was updated. The data in row 1 was not committed. Cannot insert null value into the column employee start. So we know we're not allowed to put nulls in employee start, but if you look closely at our error message, it says you're not allowed to put nulls in employee start. Gives you a hint as to how to fix it, so we can go, all right, well in that case he started today on the 7th, and now we have it. And this is one of those instances where it was supposed to start at 1, but because we had an error, the database in the background had to skip a number. And so that's why we can't really rely on it always being exactly sequential. Sometimes when errors happen in our database, our identity field will skip.